Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the European LCS as we speak. Fnatic and the Unicorns of Love are setting up on stage for our next match. So let's get into the lineups. First up on the blue side on the Rift for Fnatic in the top lane. Huni in the jungle. Rainover in the mid lane. Febiven at AD carry. Steelback at support. Yellow Star and their coach we had here earlier, Daylor. Fnatic, they're still undefeated, 4-0, much like SK Gaming, who now made it 5-0. They played versus Roccat last week, which was actually the first game that they didn't have this huge advantage early, but they still shown that they can just play the map accordingly, get those team fights, get those picks, and make it happen. What do you think it is that makes Fnatic so strong?
For me, it is definitely the fact they can play these pick comps so well, and they are so aggressive in the way they engage. Rainover, especially when he's playing Rengar, he's one of the few players here in the West who can actually pull it off, and he knows exactly when to go in, and his team can follow. I do think, though, in the game against Roccat, we saw one of the problems from Fnatic. They actually stopped playing the map. They didn't use the side lanes. They just kept looking for team fights around the mid lane, around the jungle. And that meant Roccat could actually sit back and just defend till 50 minutes into the game. Once we got a real late game team fight that then went into favor of Fnatic here also because Reyno was looking so good on the Rengar late game.
Yeah, since we're always trying to compare teams, like I feel like if we want to do that, I think Fnatic's playstyle kind of is an antithesis to Element's playstyle, where they basically like don't focus as much on sideways. They don't like have slow pushes coming in. They don't focus on CS as much. They just want to try to create opportunities and basically allow everyone to basically be in the game. That's why it's pretty important for them too that no lane tilts. The jungler, like Rainover, he had a slightly bad KDA last week, for example, but he still made plays 24/7, and that just speaks for Fnatic's playstyle.
Yeah, and that really is the big thing for Fnatic. It seems like every single member trusts each other, and the coordination is just so good. So Yellowstar can say, I'm going to engage, and suddenly he knows, okay, Huni's going to teleport down. Rainover is going to be here with his ulti on a Rengar. And that coordination we don't see from many of the other teams here in Europe. Like we just saw H2K before here. Void would go in alone, and suddenly Odoamne wouldn't follow him, or the rest of the team wouldn't follow, and then you lose team fights. That doesn't happen for Fnatic. They're all on the same page. They all know when to go in, and that's what makes them so good.
Yeah, they're definitely on point. Let's take a look at their opponents in this one, starting on the red side. The Unicorns of Love in the top lane, Vizicachi. Kikis is jungling, Power of Evil in the mid at AD, Vardax, support Hylissang, and Coach Sheepy, who we also talked to before. And we brought up the fact that the Unicorns of Love, they are dominating in the games they win, but they can't quite bring it out against the top teams they played so far, which is SK Gaming and Elements. Actually, on average, they are up 8k gold against the teams that they are winning against, but they are down almost 3k gold when they are losing versus the likes of SK and Elements, and that is huge in that early game.
Yeah, especially because it's at 20 minutes, so it's still fairly early in the game. Remember, we have no global goal from a dragon any longer, so you have to get towers or kills if you want to get that advantage. And Unicorns, they try to play like Fnatic, they just don't have the same coordination. You have Kikis, an extremely aggressive jungler as well on their side, Power of Evil trying to make the plays in the mid lane, but they're just not on the same level as Fnatic yet. And I feel like this game right now between Unicorns and Fnatic, it's going to be all about the first 10-15 minutes. Whoever gets the lead in the early game can just completely snowball it because they both play this very aggressive style, very hard engaged focus style, and constantly looking for picks in team fights.
And I think for the Unicorns of Love especially, they have an on button, but they can't find the pause button. And if you play versus a team like Fnatic that goes in, gets those advantages, and knows exactly when to go in again, they might run faster than they could with, or whatever they point they're at in the game, because they just want to keep fighting. Amazing. What's your take on Kikis in that jungle? You know, it's someone that's been playing for so long. He's been on the scene for so long, and he's made some things happen here for the Unicorns.
Yeah, like I've been really impressed by him. Like I remember playing against him like in the relegations back, and basically when I was still on Cutman Worst. And even then, he seemed to be a mechanically proficient jungler that always seems to know where to be and basically does his plays. Because quite frankly, he has really good synergy right now with Power of Evil. He's managing to get him ahead and get the main carry of the team ahead, which is always a good thing. Which is kind of the role that I played in TSM for Bjergsen, more or less.
I do think this patch as well, 5.2, actually could benefit Unicorns of Love, because Syndra got a small buff again. Her E is a bit easier to hit. We know Power of Evil is a fantastic Syndra player. We know Kikis likes to play the new jungler, so Nidalee would obviously be a pick for him as well. And Annie being nerfed a little bit, suddenly the Leona pick from Hylissang we've seen a few times comes into play here. So I actually think this patch could benefit Unicorns of Love, because also Leona and Annie has been the two picks for Yellowstar. Take away the Leona from him at least.
Yeah, that could be a setup for the Unicorns of Love to get in this game. We'll see how it fades out. The stage is set, so let's hand it back over to the caster desk to get this one going.
Thank you, Shocks. Now, the red-hot Fnatic will square off against the Unicorns of Love in just a moment, but while the former have shown a few weaknesses in their four-week opener, the latter have looked a lot less steady. Quick shot.
Yeah, I think they have. The analyst has said it best. Unicorns of Love have had great moments, especially when they're winning games. We've got a massive goal lead. It was 8K average at 20 minutes, but when they're losing, they're down 3K. That is still massive numbers, even on patch 5.2. I want to see if either of these teams is going to get their hands on that jungle Nidalee, and also what champions are Fnatic going to run. They've had 2 formulas leading up to this week that's got them 4-0. Will they try run the same recipe again?
Yeah, certainly haven't seen a whole lot of that strategic diversity out of them, at least not in champion picks, but we'll see if they mix it up here. Azir banned out immediately, and this was something Vizicsacsi did try unsuccessfully against SK Gaming last week.
So Rengar taken away from Rainova means his jungler to fall back on would be Olaf. That's what he's run previously. However, Olaf, they've only run when it's been comboed with a Zed. So Unicorns of Love pick's ban strategy has been very smart to take away that combination from Fnatic.
Yeah, and the Gnar was left available at the end of it all as bans went very quickly to Pixar as well. Gnar picked up by Huni this time around. The Unicorns of Love immediately back to pick up a couple of things. And you know, we didn't touch as much upon it even though it was picked last game, but Ahri getting those buffs with the removal of DFG in patch 5.2. They're really thinking about that one, but they have a lot of strong picks available. They could do this Leona takeaway from Yellowstar as well and see if they dare him to take the Annie again.
Yeah, and you know, Hylissang's Leona was actually very good when he ran it in the mid game. His laning phase was a little lackluster. He's run it twice already, along with 2 Thresh games. But I'm interested to see how Huni's going to perform on this Gnar. As we say, it's going to be the first time we're seeing him on a not Rumble or Lissandra. And on this tank, let's see how he's going to perform. Rainova's not going to have that same level of kill or damage pressure that he's had in previous games.
But by the same token, I want to see, because they talked about this on the desk, that Kikis loves these new junglers, and well, this is a very new jungler. Nidalee gets locked in again. I mean, there's still time for it to go elsewhere, but that just does seem like the sensible position right now as they take that and the Leona away. Fnatic, back to them.
So for Unicorns of Love, they still have the option to put a tank in that top lane if they want to. If you combo a top lane tank with a Leona support, you've got a very beefy front line. It's also a very engage-heavy front line, something that Unicorns really like to do. It's then going to allow VOD or Power of Evil to run whatever damage source they want. You've got a lot of AP magic damage coming from the jungle. We just saw Svenskeren destroying with that jungle Nidalee, so let's see how Kikis can perform with it.
We did forget that Rek'Sai was left up, though, and Reignover did not. So for his team, he picks up the Rek'Sai. Steelback will also be rocking the Graves this time around, and actually, Rek'Sai versus Nidalee, this is going to be an interesting early game jungle.
Yeah, so this is actually the first time that we're going to see Fnatic members on any of these champions. Steelback has run Sivir or Corki exclusively up until this game. We'll see how he does on the Graves. And of course, that Rek'Sai is going to make up for that lacking damage from the top laner. The one thing Fnatic are missing out on is their AP damage, and Febiven could fall back to the likes of a Xerath. He's done it exceptionally well in his 2 previous games, but I do feel Fnatic need to pick up a AP mid laner because they don't have a lot of damage. The only risk is you're picking that into a new Fizz who has also been tweaked in 5.2.
That is very true. So it's a bit of a risky thing all around. Now Yellowstar hovering right now on the Morgana would be an interesting choice for the disengage and full engage potential there, but he's been liking the Annie a lot, even though there were some slight changes on this patch. We'll see if he goes with that. There's a lot of combo ability, and also, ooh, I want to see if they take this one. They do. It's LeBlanc for Febiven.
So, is AP damage not the champion I was anticipating, but I think a good choice. LeBlanc's going to do pretty well against this Fizz in the mid lane, on the assumption Febiven doesn't get aggressed on too often too early. He's got the mobility to dodge the new fish. Fizz has been changed, obviously, with the removal of DFG, focused a lot more around hitting the target that's been tagged by Chum the Waters. It's plus 20% damage if you get caught. So that's what Febiven absolutely has to avoid. Also, Power of Evil is going to be focusing on trying to get those auto attacks down. But I think you've got a very aggressive setup from Fnatic once again. you can get picks from LeBlanc, from Annie, from Rek'Sai, and you've got a front line from Gnar. So they've got a tank in there, but I think they can still play in that same style that they have been doing up until this point.
Oh, well, this is a bit different. They're actually going to go ahead and send the Fizz top lane. And this is something that we haven't quite seen as Power of Evil takes the Ahri lock in. And this just made the game very interesting, Quickshot.
So if you want damage, you've got damage for days. Unicorns have options,
Full
what they
AP
wanted
too.
to run. You've got all of this magic damage, so if Fnatic able to get themselves a Locket, get themselves some MR up, it's going to play into their favor. The thing that Unicorns need to make sure that they do, though, is combo the damage from Kikis early onto Power of Evil and Chachi. They have to shut down Febiven or Huni so that Fizz and Ahri can continually pick off the fairly squishy team of Fnatic.
Yeah, of course, when your Gnar is your primary tank, it's always a little bit hairy when you got to make sure you time that transformation right. But this is the Unicorns that I think a lot of people were waiting for. This is the team that just decides to try something that's totally out of left field. And Italy has already been revealed, but of course, with the Fizz in the top lane, I'm really excited to see how Vizicachi does on that.
I think that's actually a very good point because Unicorns have been playing fairly standard. If you look at their team comps and you look at the picks they're running, we haven't seen those crazy jungle TFs that we expected from IEM. But this top lane Fizz is going to be very, very fun to watch against Gnar. He's all in, he's got a lot of burst, a lot of damage, but he needs to avoid all of the harass that Huni's Gnar can put down while in mini Gnar form.
Indeed. Now, you've seen their picks. It's time to make one of your own. Tweet us at LOL Esports using the hashtag FNC win or UOL win, and we'll check to think who you think will win the game. Now, stage is set, the banners are lit, and the teams are marching onto the Rift. It is Fnatic taking on the Unicorns of Love for Game 2 of Week 3 of this spring split of the LCS. Here we go.
One thing that we have to keep an eye on is for the time that Chachi decides to roam, when he comes down to do battle with Huni or even with Febiven, if you actually move out of range of the Urchin Strike from Fizz, the Q, the damage doesn't apply. It's one of the things that was modified on the most recent patch. So if Huni times his hop correctly, it could work out in his favor.
Now, what is Power of Evil doing up here?
It could be a charming
It could
play.
be anything.
Yeah.
This is what I love about the Unicorns. Just when you think you figure them out after a couple of weeks, they do something totally different. And now Kikis is actually going to run full on into every member of Fnatic who are here, or having really none of this nonsense. Just looking to set up for some deep wards and potentially a red steal.
So we knew coming into the game that Nidalee's clear speed is actually exceptionally good with the new hunt passive on monsters. And Svenskeren was able to pick up first blood into Lulex thanks to, skipping a camp and making use of all of the mobility from Nidalee. So let's see how Fnatic decide to counter it. They're not defending their own jungle. They've grouped up and they've gone on the aggressive in a bid to dissuade Kikis from trying to look for the early first blood.
Yeah, really no potential to collapse here as the bot lane is just there right now. So Unicorns of Love are going to have to seed this one over early on. A couple of deep wards in position as well, but Hylissang and Vardags are kind of trying to set up a little trap too, but they don't really know that the rest of Fnatic are all hanging out right there. So this looks like they're the ones running this side of the jungle for now as Reignover starts off the enemy red buff.
So I think this is actually very smart from Fnatic. They get the deep wards down, they start the lane swap, and because they've got the support of Annie and Graves in that top lane, it's going to allow Reignover's Rek'Sai to have a fairly safe start to the game. I really like that because we saw in that previous game just how powerful early game Nidalee is. Now let's see if Kikis is going to respond by hopping across to Fnatic's red buff. It would be the logical decision because you shouldn't expect people from Fnatic to defend that unless they commit multiple resources.
Indeed, that is the case. Now Fnatic going to go ahead teleporting Huni back to the bottom lane to start this one off. Lane swap situation, as you mentioned. Now, Unicorns of Love, from their side, I really want to see what happens in this mid lane with Febiven versus Power of Evil. This is a little bit more of a matchup we might have expected to see, but Power of Evil has really been the heartbeat of this team as far as wins and losses go. He's unkilled in their 2 wins, 15-0-13. But in their losses, only 6-5, or 6-4-5, excuse me. So he's really kind of been an indicator of how well this team is doing.
Yeah, and I think, with Power of Evil, he's an exceptionally talented player, but sometimes the games just haven't gone their way. So Huni is going to be under threat of a dive. He's going to have the support of Yellowstar, but I think this is risky if he decides to stick around. And he is deciding to stick around, so let's see how Huni manages to play this one out.
You know,
the
if he
minion
gets a
wave's about to get there
transformation-
very soon.
Yeah, this is a little bit dangerous now with the proxying Vizichachi trying to push this one away. Yellowstar can't really get too much involved in this one, and actually they're just going to start pecking away at the tower. Kikis actually moving around. They're going for the dive now. Not going to be able to get any hop away. It looks like he's going to try. Exhaust is down on Kikis, and they actually just decide to bail out. Hillisang nearly being taken down, and that was not the kind of dive you want to do.
So well played by Huni, putting himself directly in front of the attacking champions, and then that just allowed him to hop over them, get all of that range. Not even a flash burn from either Yellowstar or Huni. They did use an exhaust, but I think that was a very well executed dodge, and they handled the dive very, very well. Keep in mind that Kikis is still down a buff. He did not actually challenge for Fnatic's red buff, so he's working only with that blue and has not been able to get his second sort of major jungle camp.
Yeah, hasn't really been able to make the same kind of impact that we saw Svenskeren do last game. Of course, this is a very different opponent they're facing down right now. Yellowstar going to get a little bit of deep ward of his own, but they're roaming around quite effectively here and keeping Unicorns of Love on their toes.
Huni actually jumped on Vardags there. Vardags down to 250 HP. I think keep an eye on how these CSs are shaping up. Because of the fact that Huni's been given a very massive wave, who's shoved into the tower, he's picked up a couple of last hits, he's farming quite effectively. They're jumping on Steelback.
Yep, they are indeed, but Steelback is able to throw down the smoke screen, cover his escape. Kikis, though, nearly landing a spear onto him will force him back. And you see that fan vote. Fnatic still winning that one, but not by as much as they have in the past. And Steelback, he is in some trouble, dashes out of harm's way as Unicorns of Love again try, this time a little bit less heartedly for a dive.
Yeah, I think that was quite smart. Unicorns of Love had not seen Reignover's Rek'Sai since he left the mid lane fairly recently, so a little bit risky if they wanted to go for it. And also, Steelback with Flash and Summoner Heal, it's always going to be very difficult to dive. So Fnatic doing well. CS advantages all across the board. They're off to a good start, and they've, fended off the Unicorns of Love early game plan. Despite some damage in Huni, it's not really going to be a whole lot of threats.
And this is the kind of difference that we needed to see from Fnatic. A lot of people have been hyping them up a lot, but we've only seen really one basic playstyle coming out of them. Yes, they're still being very aggressive in the early game, but in a very different way. This lane swap, this dodging, jumping, kiting around, forcing Unicorns to try and get aggressive early. It just hasn't really worked out, but we are only 6 minutes into the game, so there's plenty of time.
We are, but what you're seeing from these first 6 minutes is Unicorns have been the ones trying to reply to Fnatic's early red buff steal. I think Fnatic understood the strengths of this Nidalee, and they opted to go for that very deep 5-man invade, keep all of their forces together in the lane swap, and they played around it really, really well. Unicorns have been reeling. They've not had that same sort of low-level impact that Nidalee could have, and their tower dive was thwarted. Tower dive top was cancelled. They decided against it. So Unicorns are just trying their best to stay relevant.
Speaking of tower dives, Reignover in prime position to be able to do something here. As Vizichachi backs away, he actually might run straight into it. There's the ward down. Okay. That'll keep him safe, but there's still some pressure on his tower here. Reignover getting a little bit of counter jungling done of his own. And they're going to just be able to push this one down, but there is Kikis. Reignover a little bit low, but they can't dive it in. They don't have the distance to close.
No, I think the response from Unicorns was pretty good. That's a good counter dive strategy, reading the map effectively and realizing that Fnatic were committing resources to that portion of the map. But what you notice is Chachi being left alone against Steelback's Graves for quite a while has hurt his CS. He's slowly clawing himself back into it. But definitely going to need to get a lot more farm under his belt if he wants to hit those sort of Lichbane, Hourglass levels of itemization and damage.
Yes, indeed. Now he himself is going to get left alone for a moment as you see Steelback making his way down to the bottom. CS pretty even between the two AD carries, a little bit of a lead here. Ooh, Huni actually going to shove Vardags back in, although his armor is getting shredded down, but look at what Huni's able to do with this Mega Gnar. Here comes Steelback, collateral damage, not quite enough, and Vardags forced to pop both of his summoners to keep his ship afloat.
But he does survive, and that's going to allow Fnatic to get some pressure on this tower if they want to. I want to contrast how Fnatic are playing this lane swap in comparison to how SK play their lane swaps. SK traditionally push very aggressively, try to get their ranged support to get damage down onto the tower over and over. But this time around, Fnatic have opted into giving Steelback that solo lane experience and solo lane farm up until this moment. And you actually see Yellowstar helping out Huni in the top lane now. He's responded, he's been moving around the map to where the threat might be. So Fnatic a lot more passive in their lane swap game.
They are indeed trying to figure this one out as Visit Shachi tries frantically to defend his tower. It's going to be difficult to do between Yellowstar and Huni shoving at it with a wave of minions, however.
Yeah, I'm completely proven wrong because Huni and Yellowstar are going to get this tower. The moment we say they're not pushing aggressively, the limited wave clear from Chachi instantly forces that tower to drop. So actually smart play from Fnatic.
I think they heard you, man.
Yeah, I think so too. Like in the previous game, Jinx forgiven.
Yeah.
Talk about him dying and he gets...
Within about 2 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, my bad, dude, my bad.
It does happen. But Fnatic, they've turned it up a little bit here now. In the bottom, everything's reset back to a little bit more normalcy, but Kikis is going to try to add some pressure here. He's going to be immediately spotted by that pink ward. He will get 30 gold for his trouble, however. That does mean Steelback should be safe enough.
Something that I really want to highlight is just the tunnel coverage from Rainover. It's all been up on that top lane. But look on the bottom, Kick is still sticking around. They're going on Steelback.
They found him. The Solar Flare is going to catch him, but Hylissang goes a little too far forward, and there is first blood with the collateral damage off of Steelback. Yellowstar frontlining Vardags and Kikis away.
Vardags and Kikis just did not get the damage down, and Rainover, that squeal, maybe putting some doubts into Unicorn's mind. Just, again, well executed from Fnatic. They're responding to Unicorn's aggression and punishing them for the mistakes. Shock said it best. Unicorns have an on button, but they're still looking for the pause button because they need to hit that soon.
Or even a set of breaks for the most part. Now Yellowstar is going to find Kikis. Fnatic, they don't need any breaks at all. Dragon is down. Kikis chased back to his tower. And you know, you had a really, really interesting point about the Rek'Sai scream. Because not only, that's a mechanic that you kind of consider to be like, kind of startling, kind of annoying perhaps as a player, but to use it in an offensive fashion to, they were going to try and get down there and close the gap, but to scare someone tower diving you away and put some doubt in their mind, the psychological aspect of that is really, really hard to understate.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's just one of those things where you as the aggressive player, you all of a sudden have to add extra factors into the equation when you're tower diving. Hylissang went way too deep, and that's why he gave up their kill earlier on. I do want to highlight that the tunnels, again, you've got these very defensive, very reactive tunnels in the top and the middle portions of the map for Rainover. And actually, if Rainover had a bit more of a defensive ward near the tri-bush of this bottom lane, he could have potentially jumped in with that rush a lot more efficiently. Febiven's jumping on PoE.
Yep, he does even out some of the damage he'd already taken, but actually, Power of Evil's doing quite well. He's got to be careful not to check into Yellowstar, and he's actually moving directly for him here. The stun is up, and he immediately dashes away Spirit Rush. Not even close. That is a very mobile Fox, but Yellowstar was within a hair's breadth.
Yeah, really, really close. The thing that's great about that is now Febiven's going to have the option to go aggressive, knowing that Spirit Rush is down. Yes, he's still going to get through Power of Evil's flash, but you know, he can chase it down with that LeBlanc, with the distortion and the Mimic distortion if he really, really wants to. Fnatic, deep vision again into the Unicorn's jungle, getting all of the information that they need to work around this Nidalee, and as long as they don't get caught up by a surprise spear and pounce, they've got themselves this nice advantage in the early game, and they're playing the map very effectively for the time being.
Playing the map is really the way to put it. Now, Rainover, you mentioned his tunnel control. He's put quite a lot more on the bottom side, all pretty much throughout his own jungle. Hasn't tried to get too deep on this one, but Fnatic haven't really needed to go on the counter-jungling path because they've been doing so well just controlling this game. Decent lead built up for them. Power of Evil, though, there is an Annie spotting him out, or excuse me, a Gnar spotting him out right now. There we go, he's going to dodge it. Charm also dodged away from.
I'm looking forward to seeing this bottom lane for Steelback and Yellowstar. They're actually not pushing the tower down, despite it being relatively low. 12 minutes. They don't have a lot of support from the rest of their team, but you can see them grouping up in the mid lane. So maybe the call is to go for the mid-outer turret. Fnatic, again, just roaming around. If you think about how much time has been spent moving through the enemy jungle and moving across the map, Fnatic really have been very mobile, and they're going to just get so much damage in this mid-outer turret here from the Unicorns.
Yeah. Bit of danger, though, potentially from Kikis, who's starting to connect a couple of those spears, but he just hasn't been quite as effective on this Nidalee so far, and in the early game, that's incredibly important to try and make a difference. Rainover really a lot more mobility on that Rek'Sai.
And you have to go back to the level 1. Fact of the matter is, Fnatic stole a buff from Kikis, which he did not manage to secure himself. So instantly Kikis was down on experience, down on levels. Then they had that failed tower dive where they didn't get a kill, but there was a lot of time wasted, and Kikis has been trying to play from behind, really, the entirety of this game. So we need to we need to actually see how he decides to play the mid game, because Svenskeren and SK were unable to successfully siege for an extremely extended amount of time, and we need to see if Unicorns can do anything different.
Yeah, Rain over here is actually defending 1v2 right now. He's got to be a bit careful, but Vardags just doesn't quite have the damage without that completed Trinity Force. It's been holding him back. Now, he's been doing decently fine in the CS department, but because of that failed dive, they weren't really able to get as much ahead as they wanted to.
No, and it's a non-traditional game. Again, you've now got Febiven in the bottom lane with the support of Yellowstar. This is going to be a really interesting game to actually analyze and break down in terms of the movements and why and where Fnatic are continually swapping. They seem to be matching up the champions that are going to be more comfortable in the lane against their opponents. You've now got Gnar. He was up against Chachi's Fizz. He's decided to back away, and we need to see where or who's going to move up to that top lane to support. Whether it's just going to be Huni again, or if somebody else is going to pick up the slack, because Fnatic are just dancing around wherever they choose.
Yeah, it's a tag team game for Fnatic right now, and Unicorns of Love struggling to really adapt to it. They're usually the team that's doing something a little bit strange, but this is Fnatic showing a different side of themselves, and it seems to be working quite well. Few weaknesses in all of this.
So Dragon up in a minute and a half, minute 20 seconds. You can see Rainover's down in the bottom side of the map. Most likely going to get vision and push that bottom tower down. We saw we're down to about a third of its hit points. So for Fnatic, the name of the game is going to be control the pit to secure the second Dragon. They had a very, very safe objective secure fairly recently, and it looks like they're setting themselves up again.
Certainly going to try, Hill is saying, clearing out one of those Rek'Sai tunnels, but they're still littered around the backside, and Rainover, chance to make another one in just a moment. The Skull Crab Shrine in Fnatic's favor. The Dragon still only half a minute away, but the Unicorns aren't keen on letting this one go for free.
Yeah, they didn't push the bottom lane either. Yellowstar, because he went into ward, it actually gave Vardags some time to wave clear and push out towards Fnatic's side of the jungle. And that's probably, what, the third or the fourth pink ward that's been cleared out of that Tribush. Fnatic have had very good defensive wards. Every time Unicorns have tried to make a play, they've been spotted out by Fnatic's vision, and it's allowing Fnatic to make the decisions. But they had a 2,000 gold lead, 5-10 minutes ago, and that's shrinking rapidly.
Hey, when you're able to get 30 gold, every one of those wards starts to add up, But Unicorns will grab a little bit back here, and they're actually the ones positioning for this Dragon as it is live. So this is actually a small moment of opportunity for the Unicorns of Love, but they have to act fast. The bottom lane, everyone's starting to converge on this, and they might just actually trade for a turret.
Yeah, nobody from Fnatic was in place to challenge. It doesn't even look like they really want to contest this. Instead, they're going to trade it for a tower. I think that's a good call. It's also something they've done as a team, traded objectives. They now need to dodge the solar flare. If Hylissang decides to go in, Fnatic could be in trouble.
Yep, Huni, though, is trying to lead the charge as well, and they've actually started to corner him up there. Tibbers only going to land on Kikis, and here we go. Hylissang charging on forward. Rainover is low, and so is Hylissang, but he's the one that makes it out. Jump the waters on. Yellowstar targeted down, fired. Visit Chachi Febiven having to flash away, and this fight has gone the Unicorns' way. 3-0. They charge down Fnatic, and now down the mid.
Unicorns of Love secured a safe Dragon, and they managed to dodge around all of the engage that Huni put down. Yellowstar's flash Tibbers, I think, only caught Kikis, and it just simply wasn't enough. We saw the Gnar from Huni not throw anybody into the wall. Unicorns have not given up. They're now on the inner turret, but we do have Rainover respawn. He's coming in from behind.
Yeah, he is. He's going to look for Kikis. The knock-up Rainover. They might have stayed a little too long, but Rainover himself chunked a little bit low. Visit Chachi now. Will Playful Trickster his way out of harm's way. So they do lose one here, but here comes Huni, a teleport on the backside. They're going to find Visit Chachi, and Huni will take him down. Vardags should be soon to follow with the auto attacks. Double kill for Huni, and just like that, it looked like the game was wide open, but Fnatic answer back with 3 kills of their own.
Yeah, but can they take the tower? There's a minion wave pushing up behind them. Let's see if they stick around. The mobility from Rainover's Rek'Sai, as well as the teleport from Huni, allow them to set up. They are getting damage down, but here comes Hylissang.
Yep, he's actually going a little bit too hard in the paint because Power of Evil was not able to fully back him up. Huni takes a couple of shots. That's enough to deter Fnatic from continuing to push, and this game is really starting to get bloody.
Yeah, back and forth, back and forth. Fnatic started that fight on the Unicorns. It didn't go their way, but luckily because they had their teleport up, as well as that Void Rush from Rainover's Rek'Sai, they were able to get behind the Unicorns of Love and punish them getting some kills. So that once again, Fnatic, they lose that little bit of ground. One step back, 2 steps forward is the way that it played out. but Unicorn showed you just how quickly they can melt through Fnatic. You see Rainover, he's gone mostly damage. He gets shredded very, very fast. So Fnatic get caught out of position again. They're just going to fall like a sack of bricks.
Yeah, gravity definitely not in their favor this time around. But the Unicorns of Love have not been without a few mistakes of their own. This gold game is extremely even right now, within 200 of each other, 2 towers to 2 towers, a dragon apiece. On paper, it looks so close, and that can only be good for the Unicorns.
Yeah, and something else we haven't highlighted, that's a Trinity Force Chachi, who's now potentially in trouble.
Oh,
Tibbers
okay,
missed.
yeah, the Tibbers did not connect. This time, Yellow Stars had some missing issues. Hylissang, though, is stunned up for just a moment. Visit Chachi jumping onto Rainover, Mega Gnar, and they take him down, keeping Rainover alive. And they'll dash back, but this is just, these are so close every time.
Very, very close indeed. The knock up there from Rainover, I think, keeping Chachi from killing him and taking him out. But yes, Trinity Force from Visit Chachi. You see how much damage he puts down, even in that one, what was it, a 1v3 throughout the extended fight. Power of Evil's got himself a Needlessly Large Rod, as well as Abyssal Scepter. Considering GFG's gone, that's not too unusual to see the change.
Everything missed in this one. The Solar Flare goes down, the Fish goes wide, the Tibbers just kind of pops down. I mean, what?
But again,
happened?
Look at all of the damage that Vizichachi was putting down with just that Trinity Force. You give him more time, and if Rainover doesn't get more tanky, there is the potential for him to blow somebody up, but he needs to hit the Chumma Waters. If that had connected, would have been a dead member of Fnatic.
Yeah, you mentioned the Trinity Force a few times, and I think it's kind of hard to overstate the fact that they've got 2 of them on their side. They've got a whole hell of a lot of AP between 4 champions in this game. And there's not a lot of magic resist outside the Hex Drinkers and the Athenes on the side of Fnatic. Also, when they do group up, Power of Evil, he goes that first item, Abyssal Scepter, to try and prevent this one, and now starting to make his presence known in the bottom lane, keep this tower alive for just a moment.
Yeah, this is actually a little scary. With Power of Evil using his rush, there was the risk of a gank, but Rainover's gone backwards.
Yep, and actually it's Vardax who's the target for this one, a little bit low, and he gets blown up. Rainover gets the kill after the collateral damage from Steelback comes in. Hylissang will walk it out, but still, it's dangerous to go alone.
Yeah, absolutely everybody piled in there onto Vardax and Hylissang. Now Fnatic are re-engaging here on this mid-inner turret. They did a lot of damage on it earlier down, and Vin's just looking for a target. Remember, there's a numbers advantage for Fnatic, but I think Tibbers actually had already gone down in that previous engage, so that hard CC not available, especially with Huni backing away in Mega Gnar.
Yeah, the counter engage is pretty terrifying here from Unicorns. Of course, they've also got the Solar Flare up in that one, so wisely backing away makes a lot of sense, but they've been able to pick little kills here and there, keep themselves in a slight lead over the Unicorns of Love, but they have to start grabbing more objectives than this. It's 2-2 in the tower game, and that is about as even as it gets.
Yeah, 1,000 gold separating him in 20 minutes. Unicorns again putting on a great fight. I want to really see how this fizz continues to play out, because Vizichachi as a player has got the faith of his team that when he feels he's found a counter pick to a champion, they let him run with it. You think of, you know, the Swain into Maokai from last year, for example. And I'm still impressed with how much damage he's getting out, but it hasn't been game-changing. Rainover's now finished himself a Warmog, so it's going to be even more difficult to just completely blow him up.
Well, the good question is was this picked for necessarily the lane matchup? Because, of course, Fnatic goes for the lane swap in this situation, and that's kind of all negated. Or is it for something else?
My estimation would have been for the laning, but it didn't work out that way. Fnatic kept roaming around. They had a lot of support from Yellow Star. Huni, you know, avoided that tower dive, and Vizichachi, he's farming very well, but he never got the time he needed to go 1v1 against his opposite number. Remember, last Dragon Fnatic did not challenge. They were not grouped, and I think they made the right decision to not, you know, commit to a fight they weren't ready for. Huni's backing away, so teleport's available, as does Vizichachi.
Ooh, Yellow Star.
That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, he's got to be really, really careful. You know, his play in weeks 1 and 2 was pretty fantastic, and Fnatic had snowballed their way to a lead, but this time around, he has been looking a bit shaky, missing Tibbers shots, taking too many skill shots, and here we go, Dragon started up.
It's also fair to say Unicorns of Love have got a lot of mobility. Teleport from
Oh, there was the Tibbers as soon as I said it! Steelback coming up with a pick on it, Kikis and Hylissang trying to stay alive. A little bit of help from Power of Evil, but he goes down all the same. Vizichachi late to the party. Steelback barely gonna go down. Power of Evil falling as well. It is a 4-for-2 trade. Can they make the ace? I think so. With a Gnar against the wall, Fnatic comes up with an ace for 2.
Such great play from Huni, flashing over the wall and stunning, managing to get the connection. So ace against Unicorns of Love all started from Yellow Star's engage. We talked about the mobility of Unicorns. It doesn't matter when you are completely pincered in. The teleport from the ward over on the right-hand side of the screen allowed Huni to get all of the pressure he needed, and it just gave Yellow Star a great place to land the Tibbers and keep Unicorns in place. Just pay attention to the zoning. You've got Rainova and Feathervin coming from the back. Teleport is cutting off exit to the right, and just really, really good pincer move. It's difficult to pull that off because Fnatic have to go in at exactly the right time, and they managed to make it work in this particular fight. Despite the fact Steelback goes down, it doesn't matter because Fnatic get 5, lose 2, and go on to secure the Dragon.
Yeah, and not only that.
Such a great stun.
Massive pick in that situation. The Dragon's great for them. The fight was fantastic for them. The teleport timing, I think, made all the difference in that case because Vizicsacsi got way too late to the party. 2 of his teammates were already dead by the time he'd started the channel of that one, and it just seems Fnatic are operating at some kind of telepathic link that the Unicorns aren't quite having access to.
That is one thing that Fnatic, I think, are doing better than anything else. Their team fighting and their coordination, especially when if you watch Primetime League and you listen to the mic check, when these guys are in team fights, they yell. They're really loud. And it doesn't sound like it's very controlled, but the team fights are just executed so well. And this particular game, Fnatic showed they can understand lane swaps, they can understand jungle weaknesses, they can punish Unicorns of Love over commitment, and that's why Fnatic are still in the lead this game.
Yeah, you know, there's got to be a reason why. We saw, of course, Daler on the desk earlier on, just very confident in his team's ability to come together like this, and it's not just because of their record that he's like that. You got to give a lot of credit to Yellow Star, but also to the entire team for just being able to come together as a unit and operate on that level. No, they've made a few mistakes, but they've been far less serious than most of the teams in this league.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think that Fnatic now need to decide how do they get a lead with their team comp. They've got the ability to find picks, the ability to blow somebody up. When they played against Rockats, it was a 50-plus minute game that stalled out in the mid game because Fnatic, that's a lot of damage.
Boy. Not quite enough to blow him up, but very close.
Stalled out in the mid game because Fnatic were unable to find a kill and then push a tower. So let's see if they can do better this time. It was Woolite being caught out of position and being soloed by Rainova that allowed them to win the game that time round. And this time, Fnatic have got a wave, and they're just going to go get this inner towers.
Rainover, I think he wanted to go a little farther than that one, but they're really able to dodge this out as they push on this turret.
Yeah, and I think we need to see how well Unicorns can defend. They've got great wave clear from Ari and from Corki with the new movement speed on Ari. He's even safer when throwing out those orbs of deception. And you see how quickly that aggressive play stalls out. Fnatic need to find an opening. They can do it through deep wards, or they can do it through catching somebody out of position.
We definitely have a few options, a few bags, a few tricks in their bag, as the Unicorns of Love try to defend on multiple fronts here. They are massing up quite well, and again, the counter engage from them is still nothing to sneeze at. And Fnatic, respecting that, will back away. Still a gold lead for them. But the Unicorns have turned a couple of fights this game so far.
So I want to go back to a theory that we said right at the beginning of the game. Fnatic, they tend to just play this very, very aggressive, sort of kill-focused game style. And they're actually continuing to demonstrate that. They're continuing to show that they want to look for picks, they want to look for kills. And you know, Pyro, we were talking about it beforehand. It's actually somewhat similar to a Millennium in that they only tend to push down objectives once they've got kills. They only look to push down towers once they got kills. You look at Copenhagen Wolves last week, Soren was split pushing on his Z, and then they were looking for objectives. Fnatic have not tried that similar sort of option just yet.
Yeah, oh, Yellow Star, though, he runs headlong into Vizicsacsi, who tries to take him down, but Rainover, and the team is there. He lives yet again. and everyone from the Unicorns having to back away. Vardag's extremely low in that as well.
Vizichachi needs to get multiple auto attacks off in an engage because of his build. With Hexdrinker and Triforce, he's a lot more reliant on getting multiple autos down to get the damage. If he had gone all AP, the burst may have been enough to kill Yellowstar, but he didn't, so it didn't happen. Fnatic get the kill, and they get a tower once more.
Yeah, Dragon's a minute and a half away as well. It's going to start being something they're going to look towards, but actually moving in the general direction of the Baron pit right now, looking to maybe set up some bait. And, you know, there is a certain brush that's synonymous with their name. Oh, not going to fall for it this time, though.
Not this time around, but we do see Hylissang going in.
Yeah, he's done it before, though. He goes a little too far forward. It's Fabivin. Picks up a kill. Steelback extremely low. Huni as well. They've got to beat the retreat out of this one from the Corki Rockets, and Unicorns can't grab anything for that.
No, and another very, very good fight. First and foremost, Rainover got into the backline, knocked up a few members of Unicorns of Love. That was then swapped out with Huni, who was then interfering. So yes, Hylissang went deep, but the Unicorns, they had threats to deal with. They had Rainover with a multi-man knockup. They then had Huni in their face, threatening to go Mega Gnar. So Fnatic are punishing Unicorns again and again and again, but they're also making sure that their champions are blocking Unicorns from engaging.
Yeah, and this, I think, is one of the perfect ways to deal with the Unicorns' unchecked aggression, is just being able to make sure that whenever they do something, and they will do something, they will try to make a play 9 times out of 10, that they're able to punish it. Now Fnatic on the Baron. This is still a bit risky. It's a smite fight if Kikis wants to go for it, but look, they're not even trying, and there's not a lot of great positioning there. This is going to be free.
No vision from Unicorns of Love, no contest, just completely rushed down, and the perfect decision to make. Even if Chachi wanted to get involved, he still had to use that teleport, and Power of Evil was in the top lane. So, caught napping. I think that's the problem the Unicorns have. They're falling further and further behind. They don't have the vision they need to be trying to push those lanes, and they're just trying to hold on with what little control they have.
And they weren't even able to try and really start this Dragon in earnest. Now Hylissang is going to try to salvage the situation, but Huni already in Mega Gnar form. He's going to completely whiff the Solar Flare. Here comes the rest of the Unicorns, and they're going to try to save the play. Hylissang already out. Steelback extremely low. Vardax is going to manage to pick up the kill. Huni now low as well, and here comes Vizichachi with the assassination as Vardax picks up a double kill and then shut down Vizzy. Oh, Fabivin goes big, but the fight's not over yet. Rainover, he's going to get collapsed on. They shut him down, and somehow that fight goes the Unicorns' way. This should be their Dragon, of course.
Super sloppy fight from Fnatic. They were not split up. Huni's Nod did not stun anybody against a wall, and simply put, Unicorns of Love were able to find the squishy targets of Fnatic and kill them one by one by one. This is a reverse of the previous Dragon fight. Look at how Unicorns of Love engage once again from multiple fronts. You've got Vardags and Kickers pulling both Rainover and Huni together. And once Huni's Mega Gnar doesn't stun anybody and times out, Unicorns just completely commit to this fight. And Fnatic are split up. They can't get focused down onto the carries because there's so much damage coming from the Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, and they'd already spent their spell rotations on Hylissang. This time he kind of out mind game them a little bit by just saying, oh, I'm going to go in. Everyone thinks I'm going in and going to get blown up. But he gets away, and then they don't have any chance. And Rainover goes a little far trying to pick a kill here, but he just gets caught by a charm, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, ends up being shut down. 3-on-1's always going to be difficult, regardless of how juicy Hylissang's Leona may have looked. So second Dragon of the game, it's actually very important to delay Fnatic from getting closer to 5th, but it isn't a massive swing in gold or power. Fnatic still have the gold lead, they still have the map control, and they're still bullying Unicorns of Love. The fact that Unicorns gave up that Baron earlier is proof to just how disconnected the Unicorns of Love are from the map play, and they need to get better wards to prevent that happening again.
But just as we were talking about Fnatic earlier in the day and how they're, can they maintain this 4-0 record? Can they show some strategic diversity? The problem is they've done it now, but it's not quite refined against the Unicorns. Part of it is just the way that they're facing down the Unicorns comp. It's a very different type of team play and team composition, but you'd think with the way that they played the last 2 weeks, the execution here is just, it doesn't look like the same team.
When you look at, the way that Unicorns are fighting, it's a little sloppy here and there, but they're still keeping themselves relevant. They're 6 kills down, they've still got 3 towers, they've only given up 1 extra. I also wonder about this Vizichachi build. He's now got a Cutlass, the makings of a Blade of the Ruined King. you have to think again, this is to somewhat counter the Gnar, somewhat counter his high hit points. Stick to him with the Blade active and your Urchin Strike, the playful Trickster. But if Vizicachi gets focused and blown up by a LeBlanc, by an Annie, he's not going to get enough auto attacks off in a team fight to be relevant. So we really need to see how impactful this mid to late game Fizz will be, because it's a very non-traditional build in the LCS.
Yeah, well, in a very non-traditional position as well. I think for the Unicorns, it's really banking on how long they can buy time and spell aggro from Hylissang, because he's been able to get in everyone's business, sometimes get out. He's been blown up on a couple of occasions, but that last time it worked out quite well for them.
Yeah, look at the investment that Fnatic put into that top inner turret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're talking 7, 8 wards in the top half of the jungle. And Unicorns of Love were able to wave clear that last engage, wave clear against the pressure Fnatic put down. And you've got all of this investment in time and resources. There's one Sightstone on the side of Fnatic. So that's quite a lot of gold invested into a strategy that did not pay off, into a decision and map play that has not worked out. Let's see if they can keep it up though, because Baron should be respawning in the not too distant future. Some of those wards should still be around. It's my timing's completely terrible, but you know, it's all of this vision that's going to waste, so to speak, until Fnatic start making use of it again.
Yeah, big chunk of damage taken out of Hylissang. He'll have to back away from this one, but Fnatic right now are just stringing Unicorns of Love around the map, forcing them to answer wherever they may be. There's nothing else neutral objective-wise for them to take, but they should be able to grab this top turret because there's really no answer here. It's actually going to be the Unicorns pushing in a wave to the mid side, and here we go, teleport.
Fnatic have decided not to push the top turret. They want to try catch the Unicorns out. This could be either fantastic or abysmal. If the Unicorns of Love get this tower, they're melting through with the damage. Fnatic are so late to this party.
They can grab the inhibitor too. Huni can't push this one off. It could be a dangerous fight. However, they've got to the backline. Blowing kick is so low. However, he makes it out. They grab the inhib. They're going to stay alive. Well, not for Hylissang at least. Can they get out though, or can they get the damage? Vizicachi trying to chase down Steelback, but he's getting blown up himself. All the same, 2 kills, and they trade for an inhibitor. Still on the run. Here comes Kikis. Huni assassination. Can they do it? Just about. Not quite enough damage. There we go. Kikis finds him, but Vivin should be able to clean someone up, and he actually ends up going for Vardags. Can they get even more? Yes. 4 for 1. Very messy escape by Unicorns, but they grab an inhibitor, and there's no time for Fnatic to really do much with these death timers. Let's take a look at that again.
Absolutely no time at all. Very, very good engage from Yellow Star on the back, and pay very careful attention to how many auto attacks Vizicachi gets off. It's way more than I was expecting, but he's not able to solo Steelback. They keep trading back and forth. Yes, Steelback does flash and summon a heal and has got the support of his teammates, but that was 4 or 5 autos out of Vizicachi's Fizz. Fnatic were too late to get back to the inhibitor defense, so despite them winning the team fights, they actually lose control of the map. They have super minions pushing in the middle lane. Their waves are about to die out in the top and the bottom, so that's going to allow the side of Unicorns of Love to push both top, middle, and bottom. You can see it's reset. Bottom wave is pushing against Fnatic. Unicorns have now completely asserted control of the map thanks to that inhibitor push, despite giving up all the kills.
Yeah, and now they're actually going to try to grab a little bit more vision on their side. Over by the Baron Pit, it does respawn. 5 seconds till the Dragon as well, so everything out on the table. Fnatic are going to have to make a move. Let's see which cards they play, but Unicorns of Love, they're already clearing vision out of the Baron Pit.
Yeah, and you know, you look once again, you look at the different champions. 4 out of the 5 roles for Fnatic are playing champions for the first time that we're seeing them in the LCS. They're not as in sync. They're not as on point. Fnatic have gained footing and lost footing multiple times. And now Unicorns of Love have grouped up much more confidently. They're much deeper into the map, and they're looking for an engage. Keep your eyes on Hylissang to go in.
Oh, Yellow Star's caught though. They land the Solar Flare down, but there isn't quite enough follow-up. The Timbers will come down as Kikis picks the kill. Hylissang flashing over the wall to stay alive in this one. And the worst time from Gnar. Vizicachi able to walk it out as Urf helps finish off that kill. Power of Evil with the pickup. And it is a 1-for-2 trade, but it is in favor of the Unicorns of Love as they close that gold gap little by little.
You could see from the positioning of Unicorns that they wanted to engage. They were grouped as 5. They were very deep in the river, and the moment Yellow Star presented himself, he got taken out. Uncontested Dragon for the Unicorns of Love. Fnatic are too slow to respond, and this vision of the Baron pit. I don't think they're going to go for this. If anything, maybe take out the pink boards would be the smart option. But Unicorns of Love, keeping themselves in it, despite being down in gold, they are putting up a fantastic fight against the league's #2 team.
Yeah, right now, taking a look at how that fight did pan out, Yellowstar is really able to not do much of anything until his team shows up, and even then.
And look at the hesitation from Unicorns of Love. Kikis didn't jump over the wall. Vardex wasn't going to jump over the wall because they were going to jump into the middle of a Fnatic squad. So Hylissang was sort of the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. But Unicorns group up after the fact. After Fnatic have blown their engage and their cooldowns, then Unicorns say, right, now we're willing to position ourselves in and amongst your champions. They go in, get some damage, and actually come out with a 2-for-1 trade.
Yeah, the tag team fighting here from the Unicorns has really been throwing Fnatic through a loop, but again, they just don't seem that comfortable on these champions, on this style of team play. And you can see that, you know, they were so dominant earlier. Huni gets caught now and should go down. If Hylissang wants to finish him with Solar Flares down, they will not find enough damage as Meganar comes up at the last moment, but Power of Evil has enough in the reserve to finish him off. And as we're saying it, Unicorns, a little bit of razzle-dazzle for another couple of kills.
Hylissang, Leona in lane, not particularly amazing. Hylissang, Leona in the mid to late game, fantastic. Those are 2 consecutive back-to-back plays. They've caught members of Fnatic, and Hylissang has set his team up for success.
And now they're going to get the Baron.
Are not contesting Baron. Instead, they're going to try push the map. They might be able to get a bottom inner turret if they decide to go that route, but they've got to be so careful because they've got an exposed inhibitor lane if Unicorns wanted to push in that route.
Yeah, they're going to have super minions at their back as well, and actually they look like they're more interested in just tanking up this tower itself. Actually, Fnatic are going to call the bluff. They're going to not get bluffed. They're going to actually back away from this one. There was the defense from Vizichachi there clearing the minion waves. This is danger zone right now for Fnatic as the Unicorns of Love are threatening the second one. Here comes Yellowstar, however, he's going to get just melted by this Unicorns team. Hylissang goes down. Support for support is traded. Teleport now coming in for Vizichachi. Can they finish up this inhibitor? They are so powerful in this one, but Fnatic, they've got some damage here. Still really dangerous. Quick shot.
Yeah, Inhibitor's still alive. Unicorns of Love, they're not relenting. They are going to get the Inhibitor, and they're going to back away.
No, they're going to move, actually, looks like, over to the other Inhibitor exposed in the middle. They've not got the minion waves, but they're going to try to chunk this one down. This is just way too much damage. They grab a second, barely take any damage. Look at that, Fabibin. He's afraid to check in.
Does not want to contest. Unicorns now, super minions in 2 lanes, have completely arrested control of this game. You go back to the start of the day, and Sheepy was sitting on the desk next to Fnatic's coach, and he said, yes, we have what it takes to win. Yellowstar jumps into the fight and got instantly charmed. He never even got Tibbers down because of how quick Power of Evil responded to that flash. Yellowstar then got caught out, obviously, by the Leona stuns and just burst down. Unicorns of Love have performed phenomenally in the last 5 minutes. They've survived long enough to get their damage down, and now Vizichachi's even tanky enough to get even more auto attacks during the course of a team fight.
Not only that, but they have really forced Fnatic to spend so many of those crucial ultimates on Hylissang. He's put himself in the front, the exact definition of a meat shield. And it's been so hard for Fnatic to answer back this relentless aggression from the Unicorns when they've blown all those spells.
35 kills in 40 minutes. It's been non-stop. And traditionally, for the first 30 minutes, it was Fnatic coming out ahead. But the Unicorns, now they've got their items, they're in a better position.
It's about the only thing traditional about this game. Quick shot is another tower. It's fired down. 8-5 is that score. The Unicorns have been in the lead a couple of times, but this one is starting to look like the big one for them. 2 inhibitors fired down. There's a teleport in the back, though. Huni is going to look to try to collapse, but this tower is already at half health. It's almost going to go down. They back away at the last moment. Huni, he uses Gnar on Power of Evil. They're going to maybe blow him up. No, Zanya's Hourglass on. Rainover goes down. Huni, Hylissang locking up the back line. Towers are falling and all of the craziness. Steelback has to flash out of the way, and Huni, he bails out even in Meganar form. Rainover down, inhibitor open. Have the Unicorns done it? They have all 3 inhibitors looking to push in. Where can they go from here? No minions just yet, but they can take all the time they want.
They've got a few champions yet to deal with, 5 versus 4, but the Unicorns want to give Fnatic their first loss.
Yeah, Hylissang is going down here. Fabibin, maybe that's a little bit of life revitalized in them, but they've got such a long way to climb without any inhibitors. Those double super minions are pushing on in. Unicorns are going to back away from this one, but guess what? Dragon's up in a minute. They're looking good. Let's take a look at that again.
Ticking time bomb. Unicorns threw absolutely everything into this fight, even with a 3-man knockup from Rainover and Huni stunning Power of Evil against the wall. The problem is Hylissang zoned away Steelback and Febiven didn't commit to get damage down. So yes, Rainover and Huni, you've done a great job of locking people up, but they're not damage dealers. They did not put it down. So Fnatic do not come away. That was a last-ditch do-or-die team fight, and they lost it. Ticking time bomb before Unicorns of Love wait for those super minions to pour into Fnatic's base, and with their help, should be able to close this game out.
It's definitely going to be some time before those inhibitors come back up. Fnatic have to shore up all their defenses, and actually not even positioning right now around the Dragon. Unicorns are just going to take everything away from the Fnatic jungle here, starting with this red buff, moving together, trying to slip and slide around any defenses that Fnatic might have left.
This unconventional Fizz pick, I'm still somewhat on the fence about it. It took a very long time to power up, and Fnatic didn't really punish a big weakness in Vizichachi's mid-game. But we've seen how impactful he's been now that he's using that playful trickster, getting Chumba Waters down and just causing a nuisance for Fnatic. The mobility and multiple auto attacks just over and over and over. And of course, Hylissang's Leona, just been great. So, super minions pouring in, Unicorns of Love. Let's see if they focus the champions or the towers. They've got the options available.
Yeah, they're just letting the minions, start pushing in on these right now. Huni trying to frontline all this, but he's already at half his health, forced to bounce away from Bivin, trying to go in. Solar Flare's going to connect the fish, does not, but they've got a lot of damage in Huni, pushing Hylissang back. There we go, Power of Evil pretty low in this one. Steelback going to spend his ultimate to try and force them back, but one tower is down. Yellow Star now in a bit of trouble himself as the spear connects. Second tower gonna go down. It's nothing but the Nexus. Have the Unicorns done it? It looks like it. Fnatic is mortal after all, and the Unicorns of Love take a win in week 3.
Fnatic have fallen, and the Unicorns of Love are ecstatic. Look at them jumping for joy. A deserved win in the late game. They stalled out long enough, and they had very good comeback team fights. Despite some mistakes in the early game and sort of the mid game, Sheep, massive grin in his face. He sat there in the beginning of the day and said, I'm quite confident. I think we've got what it takes. He just proved it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Unicorns of Love, they didn't necessarily change their style too much, but they were able to come back, they were able to make enough plays, and they were able to shut down Fnatic in a much more methodical way than we thought possible. No massive standouts either in KDA. They all just worked together as a unit. In all of that, Febiven didn't die. A 9-0-5 score would usually denote somebody on the winning team, but not this time.
Yeah, 9-0-5 was a great performance, but the problem is it just wasn't concentrated. Your team's got 21 kills. Yes, you're involved in a large portion of them, but it simply was at the wrong time in the wrong places. These are very stern, very serious looks on the members of Fnatic. And, you know, if you actually step back and look at the whole game holistically, both squads had individual and team mistakes. It was a fairly sloppy game. I use that term quite loosely because the swings in power was back and forth, and it was overcommitments and missteps. Think of Unicorn's tower dive, completely whiffed.
The fights definitely were, and some of the decision making, especially in the early game, was, I would say, a bit questionable, but here the Unicorns were able to pull it out. Fnatic, you know, 4-1 is not a bad start to a team that is 4 out of 5 new members, a completely new roster overhaul, and they got to hand it to them for making as far as they did without a loss, but now it's SK that sits alone in that undefeated category.
Unicorns of Love, 3-2. They've had games against Gambit, Elements, Giants, and SK. I think they've looked pretty good in some of them. Against SK, they were very shaky in the mid to late game. Against Fnatic, again, they've shown that they can scrap with the best, and they need to learn how to be better than the best, because they've shown they've got the ability. They can reach. They're touching it. And taking out Fnatic is a good step to proving they belong at the top of the table.
Yeah, and this is the question. Was Unicorns, a lot of people had cemented them after that week 2 as sort of a solid middle-of-the-pack team, but now the question arises, perhaps we were too, early to jump off the hype train. So this time around, the Unicorns, they've come back up a little bit more in their reputation.
There's 2 questions. Were we too early to undervalue the strength of Unicorns' Love? Or are we too early to overvalue the strength of Fnatic? Those are the 2 questions.
That is a good question. And both these teams, again, you said it was sloppy. It looked a little bit back and forth for quite a while. I think Fnatic really had the gold lead for a good chunk of that game longer.
But it was never massive.
No, there was always an answer back. And this, you mentioned a really, really good point about the Unicorns of Love are a really scrappy team. They're able to fight with anybody if that team goes to that level of them. Like against the likes of Elements, they never really got the opportunity to do that because Elements are just so good at disengaging and not allowing them to play the game that they want to. This time around, less about the champion picks, as unconventional as some of them were, but they were able to make do really well and get rolling with it.
I'm looking forward to hearing how Amazing and Deficio break down the game in terms of the chaotic nature, because it felt like Fnatic had such good control of the laning phase. Their lane swaps and their rotations around who they were facing in lane and pushing towers for the first 15 minutes were really solid. But again, it stalled out in the mid game. Fnatic were unable to really push sidewave to take towers. The few times they tried, Unicorns were there to respond. Yes, Unicorns gave up a Baron because they were out of position, but even that wasn't enough for Fnatic to get complete control of the game.
Well, they lost most of the Baron on everybody but for Bivin at the end of that point. And this is just the weird issues that Fnatic, they would get ahead, but they got a little flustered. I really don't think they were comfortable on that style of play. They tried something a bit different. When you're 4-0 up, hell, why not? But it just didn't work out for them quite this time. And there were some shaky decisions, some shaky spells. Yellowstar missed a lot of the Tibbers in the early stages of the game. Hylissang on the other side, it kind of seems like when the game hit about 30 minutes, both the supports like just
Swapped.
leveled up. Yeah, it was really, really different. So, and you know, that worked out well for the Unicorns. Again, credit to Fnatic for trying something different, for going out of that perceived comfort zone. And even though they've been handed their first loss,
yeah, I think
it's still not that bad.
I agree, and I think that with both of these teams, they demonstrated mechanical prowess. Almost every single person had great moments. Hylissang had good engages. Vizichachi actually missed a lot of fishes. That's a little uncool. But he made up for it because he was still applying pressure. You know, Power of Evil had a good charm. Yellowstar flashing in. Power of Evil charmed him instantly. And then you've got Rainover had, I think, 2 or 3 three-man knockups with Rek'Sai. Quite difficult to do. You had Febiven, 905. Huni's Gnar was great. There were some mechanically great plays. The problem came in for me. Neither of these teams really conglomerated all of those good plays into a single strong play. It was individual flashes as opposed to a team flashbang. I don't really know.
I suppose that's the best way to describe it now. I guess it's enough for our analysis. Let's go ahead and send it over to the analyst desk itself, where Shox is joined by a few members of the Unicorns of Love. Let's head over for a closer look into that win.
Thank you very much, Pyro. We're here with Vardax and Vizichachi after that heart-stopping comeback versus Fnatic. We saw you, Vardax, especially jumping up and just hugging Hylissang and going all crazy. How much does it mean to upset one of the #1 teams here in Europe?
It's amazing. Like, SK and Fnatic tied first place with 4-0, so we were super hyped about the game and we planned a lot for this, and we're super happy to actually pull out a win here.
Yeah, you tell me you planned a lot. Vizichachi, that Fizz pick. Actually, the Fisha was sitting here, credit where credit is due, and said maybe it would go in the top lane. Tell us about the plan forming to put that Fizz top.
Yeah, after the recent change, I tried out Fizz top, and I think it works really good. The early game went pretty badly for us this time, though, and I couldn't get rolling. So I had to just AFK farm mostly in the game and let my team do the job.
Yeah, especially after the early 4v2 dive it was, like Kikis was kind of like away on the golems and stuff like that, so you basically didn't manage to dive 4v2 and you fell behind. How did you actually manage to come back into the game as Fizz, because you were quite reliant on farm?
Yeah, during the dive, Hylissang called that he will stun, and we could just follow up, but somehow the stun just didn't manage to land through. After that, I was just top lane most of the time, try to farm up and come with TP if my team needs me.
Okay.
Yeah, when your team needs you in those team fights, you guys were very strong together. Let's actually pull a replay up on the screen for a dragon you guys got very early in the game. We're going to pull that up on the screen. Maybe, Vardax, if you can guide us through this fight and how you guys played it, you can roll the clip.
All right, so basically in this fight, we know we have Nidalee and we just want to poke a lot. And we know that Annie has flash, and she actually flashes in and only get kickers. And at this point, we're in a pretty good position, with Hylissang getting a great ultimate. And at this point, their front line is pretty much dead, so we can just roll over them.
Yep.
And Shachi actually gets a double kill here, which is great for him to come back into the game.
Yeah, exactly. Also your portal to get back into the game. The story of the dragons for me also tells the story of the game, because right after actually, or with the next dragon, Fnatic was able to outsmart you guys and win the fight. Can you tell me a little about the up and down in the game? Because at some point it really looked like Fnatic was taking the upper hand to close out.
We were too slow to call the TPs. Like when Gnar TP'd, I was calling for a spot to TP, but there was no wards or anything nearby. And by the time the ward just got down and I TP'd, it was already too late. So it was a bit of lack of coordination and communication from our side, which if I just TP earlier, I think the fight is totally ours there as well.
Funny you mentioned the lack of communication because on a call later on, you guys decide to push the top lane, which could have been risky, but you knew you had the upper hand at that point. Why was that?
It was all about the vision. Like, we see where they are, and we just can call at that point, like, or we know we're going to push faster. We have Nidalee for the speed with the heal. We have Corki with Triforce. We have Fizz. Like, we can push really fast, and we decided to go for it.
Maurice, where do you think Fnatic dropped the ball in this one?
I think you had a couple of team fights where Fnatic's blind trust into the flash and ult actually like hurt them a lot. You saw it in the top lane, for example, when they tried to engage and he flashed into the charm. You saw it in the replay that we just saw. He flashed in, got an ult off, but it wasn't good enough. And the blind trust that Fnatic basically has in the shot calling in the engage forced them to overcommit on certain objectives and on certain like enemies, and therefore they basically dropped the ball there.
Overcommitting at some objectives. We actually have another replay of a dragon fight later in the game, which actually occurs, if we can get that up on the screen, after Fnatic got Baron. And you guys choose to contest and somehow pull out the win here in this fight. We can roll the clip and Vardax maybe can run us through it.
So basically at this point, we felt like we can still fight them because the Baron still gives them combat stats, but not too much. Hildesang goes in a bit deep and they actually use the Tibbers. So we feel a bit strong here, and Corki and Annie are kind of split from the rest, and I'm very healthy. So I just go for it, and Annie's getting real low, and we get double kill, and after this, they're so split that we just clean up the fight.
You guys clean up here. Because Chachi's gonna die, I think. Yeah, didn't get over from that one.
That was the kill, by the way.
The Nidalee pick also, how much did your plan get thrown up by the fact that we saw it in the first game of the day? Was Kiki's like, damn, now the trick is gone, or were you guys gonna go with it regardless?
We were a bit worried that it will be banned after the first game because SK had such a great success on her, and we have been building our whole team comp around it during the weeks. We have been just practicing Nidalee all the time, so we were a bit afraid, but luckily it just got through, and Fnatic didn't even pick it up.
No, they didn't. They let you have it. A final question for you, maybe, Vardax. Before this game, we were actually discussing, do the Unicorns of Love have what it takes to take down the top-tier teams? The answer is yes, but only for Fnatic for now. How do you think this has changed your approach to maybe if you replay Elements and you replay SK Gaming, because they have a different style of play? Will it work also against them, you feel?
I think so, yes. I think that we practice a lot and we get better all the time. And this is also our first split in the LCS. So I think with a bit more experience against the top teams, we can definitely challenge them.
Well, you took down Fnatic, so I would say that there's definitely a chance. Thank you very much. Congratulations. The Unicorns of Love taking down Fnatic. It's time for us to take a break. But when we return, Meet Your Makers will face the powerhouse roster of Elements. You won't want to miss it.
I love it.
Rainover is low, and so is Hildesang, but he's the one that makes it out. Jump the water's on. Yellow Star targeted down, fired. Visit Chachi Febibin having to flash away.
No. Fizz, hurry. Leona. Hurry. Fizz, here.
Okay, I'm going.
He's alone.
Nice. Here comes the rest of the Unicorns, and they're going to try to save the play. Hildesang already out. Steelback extremely low. Vardax is going to manage to pick up the kill. He uses Gnar on Power of Evil. They're going to maybe blow him up. No. Zanya's Hourglass on.